Good morning, everyone. Let me just read again a verse from Matthew 18, verse 21. Then Peter came and said to him, reading from the New Revised Standard Version, Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, not 7 times. But I tell you, 70 times 7. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you that you are our Lord and our God. This is your word, and we pray that you'll make it clear to our hearts as we seek to meditate on it. And help us to be obedient and responsive as we hear. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. 7 strikes and you're out. Coming from once bitten, twice shy, and I know all of us know that. Once bitten, twice shy. I will forgive you, but not forget it. And 3 strikes, and you're out. And though some of the football owners not even waiting for the coaches to make those mistakes. They're not even allowing them to make 3 strikes. But 3 strikes and you're out. 7 times is pretty generous, don't you think? If once bitten, twice shy, 3 strikes and you're out. 7 strikes is pretty generous. Well, at least Peter thought so, as I'm sure he was quite pleased with himself, feeling very small and elated. I'm willing to go more than the law requires. 7 times, that's a whole lot more, thought Peter. You see, Peter was influenced by the rabbis who permitted a man to forgive his neighbor 3 times. 3 times. If your neighbor offends you 1 time, forgive. If your neighbor offends you 2 times, forgive. If your neighbor offends you 3 times, forgive. If your neighbor offends you 4 times, no more forgiveness. So Peter was thinking that, man, I am way ahead of the game. I am saying 7 times. So all he did, bearing in mind that Peter is from a tradition where even God is recorded as saying in 1st and 2nd chapters of Amos, for 3 generations and for 4, I will not revoke the punishment that I have. For Damascus, for Gaza, for Tyre, for Edom, for the Ammonites, for Moab, and for Judah. For 3 transgressions, and for 4, I will not forgive. In other words, 3 okay, but if they transgress the 4th time, even God was saying, I will not forgive. So Peter felt he's way ahead of the game. Imagine that he was more gracious than God. For forgiveness was limited to 3 times. So what did he do? He took the rabbinic formula of 3, multiply by 2, you get 6. And then he added another. You can't beat that. So you can imagine how Peter must have felt when Jesus said, no, Peter, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. You get the maths? No, Peter, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. A man must forgive in order to be forgiven. The extent to which you are willing to forgive is the extent to which we will be forgiven. In this response, and the story of a king wanting to settle account with his slaves, told by Jesus, after were several lessons from about forgiveness that we sometimes miss, or we dare not miss. We need to know that some of the greatest teachings of Jesus and the lessons learned are those which came from answers that Jesus gave to questions asked by his disciples or asked by others. Jesus was teaching about how to deal with sin in the church, and Peter raised the $6 billion question. Peter came and said to him, Lord, tell me something. If a member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, not 7 times, Peter, but I tell you, 70 times 7. The question and the response Jesus gave are both useful and instructive for the insights and inspiration we gain on forgiveness. And I want to suggest 3 little responses or insights that we gain within the limited time we have for the rest of this service this morning. I want to know that forgiveness is reflective. It's a reflective process. It seems that Peter listened to Jesus. He considered what should happen if a brother or sister in church sinned against me. Peter reflected on the issue, reflected on the message that Jesus was teaching. What should I do? If forgiveness was one of the options, how should this happen? Peter was being reflective. He was thinking of the best way to be a good disciple. He was following Jesus and was learning from Jesus, and he wanted to do what was the right thing. He had some ideas. That's what he put to Jesus. He didn't ask Jesus with an empty head. He came to Jesus with a thought. He said, Jesus, you think it should be about 7 times? I think so. He reflected on the situation that asked you to do the same thing as a way of behaving as a Christian. When someone sins against you, don't just react or retaliate. Think. Consider what is the best way to respond. Be reflective. I know this may be hard for some people as we live in and function in a debating, retaliatory, comeback mode. You know, when somebody says something, we are quick to debate. When somebody says something, we want to retaliate. When somebody challenges us, we want to come back or give a comeback statement. I've always heard the thought, think or the saying, think before you act. And everyone can do this. Peter has been labeled the impulsive apostle, the one who acts before he thinks. But here he's reasoning with Jesus. How often should I forgive? Peter paused to reason. Peter is saying that forgiveness is a reflective process. If somebody offends you, if somebody does something to you that hurts, if somebody does something to you that is bad, think about it. Don't just react. Don't just retaliate. He says, think it through. Think about it. What is worthy of note is Peter's response, that he knows he's in Peter's response, he knows he's to forgive. It's just how often, how many times. So even in the question and the response that Peter gives, Peter knows that forgiveness is required. He reflects on that. He knows that forgiveness is expected. He knows that forgiveness is understood. What he's raising here is how often should I do it? That's Peter's question. So he establishes the fact that forgiveness should come. If a brother or sister offend me, I should forgive. The question is, how many times? Pause before you say or do something, my brothers and sisters. Even when you are hurt and embarrassed, sometimes you know the hardest time to keep your tongue and not to forgive is when you are embarrassed before other people. Don't you know it? It's when somebody offends you before others and you feel small, you feel bad. That is the time you want to really retaliate. That's the time you want to come back. Clearly, Peter was thinking of the ways that another brother could sin against him. He was also keenly aware of the times he may have sinned against a brother or sister. Or one of his brother fishermen may have broken his net or taken some of his fish without his permission and did not say anything to him. Or Peter may have remembered that one of his brothers had called him a liar or insinuated that he was a thief. Or he may have remembered that because he was so impulsive, he got into a quarrel with one of his colleagues one morning on the seaside. And they nearly came to blows. And the brother said something to him about his mother that is not fit for airplay. And it was only because he was restrained by another disciple that he did not get himself in serious trouble. Are you with me? Think about the situation. Reflect on how you feel when you are sinned against, and think about how the other person could feel when they are not forgiven. Think about how the other person could feel when they are not forgiven. The world says, once bitten. Peter says, Lord, 7 strikes. Peter says, Lord, is it 7 times I must forgive? Jesus says 70 times. Reflect on it. Because you want to be a better member. Because you want to be a better disciple. Do not just take the command at face value. Do not take the expression at face value. Reflect on the issue of forgiveness. If someone offends, if someone hurts, think about how you are going to respond to that person. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is that forgiveness is not only a reflective experience, it's a relational experience. Why do I say that? Forgiveness is a relational experience. Forgiveness is a relational experience because it is not you alone in the forgiving experience. You are not the only person in the forgiving experience. It involves somebody else. It involves somebody else. If another member sins against me, that's Peter's question. So Peter recognized the relationship that is involved. If another member, so he understands that it is not he alone in this equation. He's not the other person. It has to include somebody else. His question is, how should I treat the other person? How should I treat him? How should I treat her? So if somebody else is involved, what is my disposition? What is my attitude? What should be my approach? This is about treatment of another person. How should I behave in this relationship? This experience of being sinned against is bigger than me. It's bigger than I am. It involves my fellow member of the church. The way I treat this person then has implications for the relationships in the church. The way I treat another person has implications for what happens within the church. Any approach that is developed for the other person, any standard that we set, any principle that we develop, or any principle that is established will also impact me, because I am a member of the same community. So, if I say forgive 7 times, that is the standard that I'm establishing, then my brother or sister will only forgive me 7 times. You get the picture? So Peter was saying, how often should I forgive? 7 times? If I set that as a standard, if I establish that as a principle, if that becomes the way of functioning and relating to one another, that's the standard that is set. So if I say 7 times, it means that if I am the one who caused the offense next time, my brother or sister will only forgive me up to 7 times. This is why it is important to understand the relational aspect of this statement. Peter needs to understand then it is not only 7 times 7. That is why Jesus said it is 70 times 7. It goes beyond the standard that is established. So the standard is both relational and the standard is also reciprocal. Peter was establishing a standard which was relational to one point and it was also reciprocal. Because if I forgive my neighbor 7 times, it means that I'm expected to be forgiven 7 times as well. Can you imagine if you have created more offense that the other person will only forgive you up to 7 times? Because that is the standard that would have been established. Jesus said, for in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you again. Matthew 7 verse 2. I want to say too that the matter of forgiveness is relational because it involves the whole community. It involves the whole community of faith. That's why it is relational. Why do I say this? Jesus tells a story. And in this story, he talks about the Lord or the master who forgave the slave who owed him more than he could repay. Now, I was working this out and reading some things about this. And what this servant owed the master was something like 625 million Jamaican dollars. See if you can wrap your head around that. 625 million Jamaican dollars. And the servant went out. No, he couldn't pay that. There's no way he could have paid it. And the master said, take a break. I forgive you of all that debt. He went outside. So I'm jumping ahead in the story that I want you to read when you go. He went outside and saw a servant who owed him. Now this is what the servant owed him. A phone card money. Are you with me? The servant owed him a phone card money. And he said, pay me my money, man. Pay me my money. He said, I don't have any money to give you back. I don't have any 625 million compared to a phone card money. Pay me back my money. He said, I don't have any. And you know what? He took him and threw him in jail. But what I want you to note in the relational aspect of forgiveness, when his fellow slaves saw what had happened, they were greatly distressed. Is the other fellow servants, the other fellow slave saw the situation unfolding before them. They said, no, this can't be good. They were the ones who were upset. They were the ones who were disappointed. They were the ones who were shocked. Imagine, look how much this man was pardoned. All of them are slaves, you know. They are only thinking too possibly that this is what the man would have done to them as well. Look how many of them were pardoned, and this is what the man did to his own fellow slave. He could have done it to any one of us. They were moved, they were distressed, and they took action. They were so distressed that they went and reported to their Lord all that had taken place. Forgiveness is relational. It's not only when somebody offends you and you fail to forgive. It's not only you who know about the issue between you. Other persons see the other brother or sister suffering and they are concerned. Let's remember that. Other persons will see the brother or sister suffering because of your failure to forgive, and they will be deeply distressed by that action. When you see and know that your fellow member, your fellow disciple, your fellow servant of Christ, another brother or sister, another friend, refuse to forgive, it must become your concern. Amen? I was at School of Ministry over the last couple of days. And it was good to see Dr. Taylor there. He was one of our presenters as well. But I just want to share a story. The story is that two of our brothers shared some stories at the center. And I got their permission to share this. what's up, your brother? And he called me back this morning and said, Trevor, go ahead. He shared he had a series of prayer meetings. And in that prayer meeting, he missed one evening. And the following morning when he came to church, somebody came to him and said, Pastor, you missed a serious prayer meeting last night. He said, really, what happened? Pastor, you know this, but big fight. What do you mean big fight? After the prayer meeting, two ladies, I call them Sister Hannah and Sister Gabriel. These are 80-year-old women. Two women. Sister Hannah gives Sister Gabriel one big box, Sissy Parson, land her on the floor. Why? What happened? Why? When the story come out, we hear that years ago when they were teenagers, Sister Hannah said that Sister Gabriel take away her boyfriend. You hear me, friends? These are 80-year-old women from teenage years. And this brother is sharing that this is something that happened in his church at a prayer meeting one evening. What point am I making here in supporting the relational aspect of forgiveness? Forgiveness is relational. Sometimes you may know that a brother or sister is hurting from unforgiveness. It's a community effort. It's a community issue. You need to be able to go to another brother who you know is offended and say, forgive him now, forgive her now. She under great stress. Him under great stress. That is what Jesus is talking about here. That is why it's more than 7 strikes and you're out. But I don't want to stop at that story. I want to share another story which was also shared at the meeting. It was a story where communion was being held one Sunday. And a sister was noted, was observed sitting and crying. She was crying, she was crying. And she was really sobbing till she got the attention of those persons. And then at some point when the communion service was almost finished, she got up and she went over to another sister. And she embraced that sister and she sobbed on her shoulder and she said, I forgive you. I forgive you. It is only when that action was taken that she could move forward and take the communion. My brothers and sisters, sometimes we may need to take that action as well. The hurt may be for years, and it's amazing that many years may pass and people hold grudges, hold unforgiveness, hold bitterness, hold resentment. Forgiveness is a relational issue. It affects the whole community. It affects everybody else. Families we know have been torn asunder because siblings, spouses, children, parents, inside families entertain resentment that they have not been able to deal. And sometimes people gather for family. My family is the mother side of my family, she's deceased, is meeting out of town this weekend, and they say that when for our family reunion, everybody coming together, nearly 50 or 60 of us, it says that when families meet, there's always contention and conflict. We are praying that no such thing exists in our family. Thank God we have been able to maintain some sobriety over the years. But sometimes people quarrel over dead left. Sometimes people quarrel over statements made. Sometimes people quarrel over issues about what father did or what mother did or what other siblings did. And these create division, they create confusion, they create hostility, so that sometimes people are mourning, sometimes people are crying out, and you don't know what is behind all of those cries. Forgiveness is a relational issue. The whole community should feel the pain of one who is not forgiven. Is 7 strikes enough? Is 7 strikes enough? Jesus is saying 7 strikes, not enough. I want to move to the last point, so I'll let you off early today. Forgiveness is a reflective experience. It's a relational issue. Forgiveness is a responsible undertaking. Forgiveness is the responsibility of the member offended. The member sinned against. Whatever that sin is, how often should I forgive? Peter is in no doubt about what his responsibility is. He says, how often should I forgive? He is conscious of the fact that forgiveness is his responsibility. He says, how often should I forgive, Lord? He's very clear about his responsibility. It is not the other person's responsibility to even come to ask or even come to you and ask for forgiveness. But if they do, it helps. And if they don't, it is the offended member's decision, choice, and responsibility to forgive. Are you hearing me clearly on that one? It is the members, it is the person who has been offended who is required to forgive. Let Jesus be the guide in this matter. 7 strikes are not enough, he says. You need more than that. And let us note that the offenses are going to be multiplied daily. These will lead to frustration. The offenses will lead to anger. The offenses will lead to disappointment. You will be tempted to complain. And you may even be justified in doing so in some cases. You may be tempted to retaliate, and perhaps no one should blame you when you do. You may hold these for years, inadvertently imprisoning yourself. You may have scars which remind you of the occasion and how you felt helpless, alone, disrespected, taken for granted. For whatever the feeling is, it is your call, your responsibility to forgive. So hard, doesn't it? You are to choose the response you make. So brothers and sisters, it's not about who started first. When I was a child, or when I was much younger, one of my younger brothers was caught in a little fight, he and his cousin. They were about 3.5, 4 years. They were pretty young. And both seem to have had bite marks on their hand, and we wondered, we asked them, what happened? And one of them said, he barked me and I barked him back. Couldn't talk very well. He said he barked me and I barked him back. He beat me or he bite me and I bite him back. In other words, for many people, we are walking around with scars. Others bite us and we bite them back. You know that if you have the scars bit by somebody, you don't have to give them any scars. It's your choice. You make a choice. You decide whether you want to bite them back or not. David had a choice. You listen to the passage in Samuel? You get the picture? David went into a cave with his army, deep into the cave. And then Saul came, the king. Now Saul was hunting David to kill him, I remember that. And David went deep into the cave. And Saul came into the cave to relieve himself. Now David's servant said, David, come on, man. God give you this opportunity. Go strike down the man and kill him now. You get up. It's like a platter before you. His head is on a platter. What do you think? But David said, far be it from me to hurt the Lord's anointed. But David went and clipped off a little piece of goat. So he could throw it later and say, listen, you see what I could have done? I could have done it. But I took a higher road. That's what David said. I could have done it. I could have done you in. But I took the higher road. It's a responsible undertaking. You must take responsibility for how you respond. People can do anything to you. They can say anything to you. But you have the power of choice. Always remember that. You have the power of choice. I wonder if I could challenge this congregation today and to say to you, don't ever from this day say, it's because him do this or she do this why I did this. I wonder if I could challenge you on that. Don't ever say he started it first or she started it first. Get to the stage where you say, notwithstanding that he started it or she started it, I have chosen to behave this way. The former method is infantile. You are still in your childhood. The second method is that you are maturing. You are becoming a man. You are becoming a woman in Christ. And that's what Peter was concerned about. How can I be a better disciple? How can I be someone who is doing what you want me to do? Forgiveness is a responsible decision. Is a responsible undertaking. It is not dependent on the other person. It is how you behave in regard or in response to them. 7 strikes cannot be the standard. It is endless. It is one offense against another. The decision is still the same. The offended must take action and forgive. How often, says Peter, should I forgive? Peter was very clear about what was expected of him. He must forgive. Where he differed from Jesus was in the number of responses he made. For Peter, forgiveness was quantitative. For Jesus, forgiveness was qualitative. It's not about the number of times I forgive. It's about the relationship with my neighbor. It's about taking responsibility. It's about doing what God wants me to do. It's about behaving differently from the world. So that when you hear a minister or a servant does something and everybody say, him should resign, fire him, fire. We don't have to jump on that bandwagon. We need to understand the circumstances before we jump on the public bandwagon and say, fire him, fire. Or sometimes we hear a statement and we say, yes, man for dead, man for born. Hold on, brothers, hold on. Sometimes the church gets into that kind of situation where we are the first to condemn. We show no mercy. And sometimes the people in the world are more merciful than church people. Ease it, brother, ease it, sister. Forgiveness is relational. It's a choice we make. We make that choice. God's grace cannot be quantified. You cannot quantify the grace of God. Neither can we quantify our efforts in reaching out to our brothers and sisters who have sinned against us. We can never keep score of how much God has forgiven us. You ever think of the times that we have offended God? That we have done something wrong? The little sins we store in our lives. If you ever think of those times, and yet God has forgiven. And we can't forgive our neighbor. We can never keep score of those. Then how can we keep score of the times our sister says something in an unguarded moment? Why should we keep score of those times? How can you keep score of that guy you lost or girl who never spoke to you again because someone lied against you? You remember that story? How can you keep score of that co-worker who made you lose the promotion you were waiting for, or which could have helped to get a better car or improve your mortgage? You know that story. The decision is yours. You are responsible. So my brothers and sisters, I conclude just by summarizing. Forgiveness is a reflective process. You must think it through. Think about your action and attendant consequences. 7 strikes, not enough. Forgiveness is a relational process. Your behavior is impacting the other member, the other person, notwithstanding that they may have acted first. Any standard you set will be the same standard that will be applied against you. You must be moved when you see the suffering of a brother or sister who has not been forgiven. 7 strikes, not enough. Forgiveness holds you personally responsible. It's your choice. It's your decision. You are responsible. May God help each of us today to embrace His grace and to be abundantly merciful as God is merciful to all of us. Amen.
Amen. We will now have the hymn of response. There's a wideness in God's